1. I apologize in advance to whatever brave soul dares to try and stay sane after this tale of woe, misery, and an entitled guy who just doesn't know how the world works. A fellow who's best described as worrisome, passionate, very sexist, a pinch racist, and strongly against educating himself in any way. Buckle in, this will be a ride, but one you will not be able to look away from, a descending tragedy like a train wreck. Chapter 1. I introduce you to a pubescent Kevin. I had the displeasure of meeting Kevin when I was in high school. He was 1 grade ahead of me. My freshman year we were friends, or at least friendly. He was a little ditzy, but I didn't care. He would confidently say things like, "Physics don't apply to the real world. Those are all numbers and letters. I don't see them floating around all the time. They're not real." And, "I've come to the conclusion that lizards are the best animal to lick your wounds when you get an injury because they can grow back whole limbs. If their DNA gets in yours, you'll heal quicker." To be fair, we were still in high school, but he was a senior when he said that. I first started to get actual red flags from him when he started getting into regular shouting matches with other people, when he was clearly and solidly in the wrong. One time he screamed at a teacher because he was talking about heavily drinking, and the teacher said, "You can't discuss that stuff in front of me. I don't care personally, but I have to report that stuff if I hear it." That set him off. Somehow he was screaming that alcohol is not addictive. And then that there is no such thing as being addicted to anything, and that it's just a mindset. I left when he started to rant about how he's got a special stomach that makes it where alcohol doesn't make him drunk. Even as a 15-year-old, I was like, wow, this guy does not know how anything works, does he? A mutual friend of me and Kevin's, Karen, was a lesbian at the time. It was a huge point of discourse in our school, because we lived in the South, and she was in a very open relationship with another girl. Did I think it was wrong for people to treat her badly because of it? Yes. Did I, as her friend, know she was absolutely wackadoodle crazy? Also yes. Anyhow, at some point she breaks up with her girlfriend and starts dating Kevin, despite the red flags that literally anyone else saw and warned her about. I came to the conclusion that she must be bi rather than lesbian, and when it came up in casual conversation one day, he triumphantly said, "Yeah, I always knew she was straight. I mean, it's the only real sexuality. She was always fooling herself. I would say I turned her straight, but there is no such thing as actually being gay." Classy. That was the last conversation I had with him in school. After that, I just kind of distanced myself from him, Karen, and the rest of that friend group, because they were all crazy. My at-the-time girlfriend, now fiancé, however, did not. My fiancé, Babe, transferred to the school halfway through her junior year, and unfortunately, due to the fact that almost everyone in school was racist, did not make a lot of friends, except, conveniently, the friend group that Karen and Kevin were a part of. I could go on for story after story, but they were all fake friends and wanted a token black friend. And that's all Babe has been for them. But that's a separate story. I'd like to focus on Kevin and his now wife, Karen. Dear listener, if you are under the impression that we're nearing the end, prepare yourself. Compared to what's to come, all else makes Kevin look like a rocket scientist. Babe graduated a year before me, in the same class as Karen and Kevin, and most of their friend group. As such, there was a little overlap between Babe graduating and beginning her adult life, and me beginning mine. While I was finishing my senior year, I was hearing horror stories through Babe on the side. It was like a drug. I lived for the rush. This brings us to Chapter 2. Kevin and Karen nurture their budding adult relationship to the horror and dismay of everyone around them. Kevin quit his part-time job at McDonald's because he felt disrespected by everyone, so Karen was the only one working. Kevin eventually gets kicked out of his mom, so he moves in with Karen, who still lives with her dad, and, I think, stepmom. Around this time, I found Karen's TikTok, where she announced that she and Kevin were trying to get pregnant, while still living at home with her parents. She then makes a TikTok one day titled something along the lines of, "My dad flips out that I'm pregnant." The video is literally her showing her dad a positive pregnancy test and him going, "Oh, you really threw your life away. I can't support both of you and an infant." Have you thought about the commitment of having a baby? Your job's about to fire you and Kevin's unemployed. How are you going to do this? Neither of you are mature enough to do this, and you didn't discuss it with me first, which is really frustrating. He basically reacts to her news in real time and tells her that she and Kevin will, big surprise, need to find a new place to go. So they moved in with, again, I think, Kevin's grandparents, who apparently treated Karen like crap, and guess who didn't defend her or back her up? Big surprise, Kevin. Brother tucks his head in the sand, and after Karen gets fired, she becomes the house's new live-in maid. After some silence, aside from Babe occasionally giving updates about the pregnancy, disaster strikes again. Kevin wrecks their only shared car. The dashcam footage showed him falling asleep at the wheel, and when Karen tries to wake him up, he loses it and, in a fit of violent rage, crashes their car. I don't know the details too well, and as someone who's never been in trouble with the law, I also don't know how probation works. But from what I could gather, he had to do community service, and he also tried a few times to break the rules of his probation. His driver's license wasn't taken away, just restricted, meaning that he was allowed to drive. But if he broke the rules of the road in any way and got caught, the consequences would be more severe than normal. Does he take that to mean that he needs to drive better and improve himself? Nope. Now he just refuses to drive anywhere. Guess who becomes their regular designated driver? My lucky fiancé, Babe. It may seem like they made some odd decisions to stay in touch with Karen and Kevin, due to their mountain of red flags, and now looking back, I think me and her can agree it was silly to continue to indulge them, but to be honest, it was the biggest source of entertainment we had for that chapter of our lives. I had freshly moved out of my parents' house and in with her, so I was in the first stage of figuring out how adulting was going to work for me. It was stressful, but the knowledge that a couple living just a few blocks away had made so many bad decisions in such a short amount of time helped me feel less doomy about how my life was going. Babe started giving Kevin and Karen rides everywhere, since literally no one else would. The people who liked and felt bad for Karen refused to have anything to do with Kevin, especially after the car crash where he visibly lost it on his pregnant girlfriend. So Babe took them to doctor's appointments, attempts to get their own apartment, even though neither of them were working at this point in time, grocery runs, and other such things. Then came the day for them to learn the gender of their baby. After months of Babe giving them rides, free food, and in some cases cold hard cash, she assumed she would be allowed to follow them into this appointment, as she had done time and time before. And also because, Karen straight up told her that she would be allowed to attend. When they get to the doctor's office, Kevin from the back seat tells Babe, we feel like it wouldn't be appropriate for you to know the gender of our baby before everyone else. Could you stay in the car? To which Karen swiftly tries to shut him up, because their freebies were contingent on Babe's goodwill, which Kevin had already strained through his various other antics while being provided a free ride. Babe said, "No, that's fair, but it's also fair for me to go home as soon as y'all go inside, because this was already an inconvenience to me in the first place. So if that's the decision you want to make, go ahead and call someone else to pick you up and take you to the mall." Babe was also about to take them on a free trip to the mall and their doctor's appointments, which again she had taken them to for free, which was 2 hours away from where they lived. Kevin quickly quieted. Even though he's not the brightest, I think he knew that he didn't want to be stranded 2 hours away from home with his pregnant girlfriend. In the end, Karen apologized and told Babe that she wanted her there, and they found out that the bouncing baby boy would soon be on our planet with us. Babe shops for baby items with them and then gives them a $20 limit for lunch for the two of them. To no one's surprise, Kevin spends it all on himself and says, "I thought you were giving us both $20. Oh, Kevin. And the cherry on top is that instead of splitting it amongst them, or giving the mother of his child the meal and eating later, he ate the whole thing. Oh, Kevin. So this ends the pregnancy chapter. Now, I will say the end is in sight. We're almost done now. One more long chapter to go. The lunacy, the entitlement, though almost too much for one listener to handle, will soon be over. Those who chose to stay are in for a treat, because before it gets better, it has to get worse. Chapter 3, Kevin Gets Hitched. After a while, Kevin and Karen downsized from his grandparents' house to the quaint little homeless shelter. While living there, Karen gives birth to their baby, Ezekiel, and so begins Kevin's I'm a dad era. Babe comes to me with the concern that Karen is really underweight, and that Kevin may not be letting her eat enough, and asks if we can have them over for dinner once a week, if not for the entertainment, at least so Karen can gain some weight. That's not. So I agreed. To be honest, my social life was kind of dead between college and work, and I wanted to cook for more people than just Babe, so we worked out a time where we'd go pick them up and have dinner, and maybe watch a movie. The first few times was nice, if not a little awkward, since I hadn't personally really seen either of them since they graduated high school, and they had a whole baby with them, which had to be entertaining in some capacity, right? It's a good thing I don't have kids because my expectations were way off. Since this creature was pretty much a newborn, he didn't do much other than sleep and cry when Kevin tried to feed him something he was too young to eat, which Karen had to whisper fight with him over. Awkward, but also really funny to talk about with Babe after they left. I got to see Kevin go on long rants about how the Earth may actually not be flat or round, but some secret other shape that science hadn't figured out yet. I got to see him confidently announce that he wouldn't be watching the new Daredevil show, because Charlie Cox won't be starring, since Disney fired him for saying slurs. That one floored me a little because he'd already been in No Way Home and She-Hulk at that point, and was confirmed to star in Daredevil Born Again. But Kevin insisted that woke Disney had definitely fired the guy, which he had heard from a friend, and refused to look up and verify. Well, that aged poorly. He also talked about how he was really astounded that I was in college at 18. Both me and Babe had jobs, our own place, and a car each. He was like, "How'd you do that?" And I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying, "By not being an ignorant bonehead for the last 3 years." But instead I just told him, "I guess I'm lucky." It was around that time that I realized he was trying to emulate my life with Babe, through his own backwards methods. He found out we had our own apartment. He tried to get a low-income housing apartment in the same area. I'm in college for welding. He also wants to go to college for welding. We have a Mazda. He also wanted a Mazda for their next car. What he didn't seem to pick up was that our success, which wasn't even success, it was just normal Zoomer suffering, was because we didn't try to rush into the 3 kids, 2 dogs, goes to church every Sunday, with a white picket fence and cottage life that he envisioned for himself and Karen. He's also really conservative, but instead of being the rich conservative like he thought he'd be, he's a broke-all-the-time hateful conservative, which me and Babe are not. Broke all the time? Yes, not hateful though. The only reason our relationship works is because we don't approach it at a conservative angle, which he tuned out every time I gently tried to tell him when he'd ask how we have it so good. Then comes the day we'd been dreading. Through the grapevine, we'd learned that it would seem that Kevin and Karen had spent as long as they could at the homeless shelter, and needed somewhere to go. They were being evicted. Babe immediately envisions that we would be on their list of people to call and ask for a place to stay. On that same day, we get a phone call. It's Kevin. "Hey, I hate to ask," doubted, "but no one will take us or our baby. You're our last option, and if you say no, I'll understand, but me and Karen need at least a roof over our heads for our baby. We'll sleep in the bathtub if we have to, but could we please have a place to stay?" Me and Babe discuss it. I was pretty against it, as you bloody well should be. But Babe felt bad for Karen and the baby. She didn't really care much for Kevin, which came as a surprise to no one. Babe and I came to the conclusion that we get an inflatable bed, a nice one at that, and clean the spare room for them. We'd help them pick up their things from the shelter and give them 2 weeks. So, we get everything squared away, get them into the house, and notice the lack of an infant. So we asked them and they said, "Oh yeah, we left Ezekiel with Kevin's mom. She's gonna watch him for the first week." No newborn in our house. Great, win in our book. Unfortunately, the newborn likely would have been a better house guest. Night 1 of this extended sleepover, I put out a bottle of scotch gifted to us over the holidays, and poured myself a glass while I made dinner. Karen asked if she could have a cup, and Kevin hastily blurts, "Don't give her any alcohol, she's pregnant." Me and Babe immediately asked, "What are you talking about?" Apparently, I think she had like 2 positive pregnancy tests a month before she moved in with us. But they took another 2 the night before they moved in. 1 was negative, 1 was positive. They told us they think she's pregnant because of that, and that they didn't think it would be a big deal to mention that to us. To be fair, it wasn't really, but also, would have been nice to have been given the heads up about. Also, she just had Ezekiel 3-ish months before her 2 positive pregnancy tests, meaning she'd gotten pregnant within 3 months of giving birth. I am no expert on anything, but I've heard that's not good. I also heard from both of them that it was Kevin's idea. Sheesh. Within the 2 weeks they lived with us, they broke our cooking utensils, racked up our electricity bill, regularly commandeered services we were trying to use, and turned our spare room into a pigsty. I understand that a lot of their stuff was damaged while living in the shelter, so most of their personal belongings were dirty and smelly, but they just made more and more and more garbage. They stole things while we were with them in public. They left actual rotting food on the floor, and hoarded food they bought and food we bought for the household, in their room. You literally couldn't see the floor past the sheer amount of actual garbage there was. That was without the baby. Kevin thought he was a culinary magician. He spent the little money they did have on extravagant food, expensive spices when he wasn't carelessly wasting ours, and wasted an entire bottle of expensive novelty blueberry barbecue sauce I was gifted, and barbecue burgers that tasted awful. Half the time he got food or cooked, he'd give us free samples worth for dinner, and take the rest to the room and leave all his dirty dishes. One day Karen started a fight with me over how I chewed my own food in my own house. I was eating lunch, and she started commenting on how I was chewing with my mouth open, and when I chewed with my mouth closed, she complained that she could hear it, and said she had a phobia of gross noises. I basically told her that if she had a problem with how I ate my food, she could go eat in another room. She just kept on arguing, and Kevin joined in. So Babe pulled out her mini speaker, turned on mouth noises at full volume, and just stared at Karen. Karen and Babe just stared at each other for about 3 minutes before Babe turned off the noise and said, "Now that I have your attention, please stop telling us how to eat. We want to be accommodating, but you're doing too much." Babe turns and points at me. "He's been polite toward you and Kevin, even though he didn't even really want y'all here in the first place. You're staying rent-free. Stop bossing the way my partner chooses food." Karen just went to her room crying. Natch. Kevin apologized on her behalf and said it's just a lot, which me and Babe could agree on. After that, she apologized. But does it stop there? No way. They complained about what we made them to eat, what shows we watched, what games we played, and Kevin critiqued how liberal positive we are, and that he didn't really want the baby around that kind of stuff at a young age. Don't we think we can move some stuff out of view so it doesn't influence Ezekiel? The liberal positive stuff in question, the Disney Lightyear movie, a bi flag in my bedroom, and a really funny hand-painted picture that Babe bought of a crying black guy on the toilet that we had hanging up in our bathroom. Ironically, we also had a flag in our living room that had Benjamin Franklin on it that says, "Tax this dick," that he had no problem being around his kid. Then one night, Babe, being 21, took edibles. Kevin, also being 21, begged her to let him, even though part of his probation was that he had to be sober. We both said we weren't comfortable with him doing that. At some point, Karen, also being 21, at this time in a legal state, also asked if she could use an edible. Me and Babe were skeptical, but she swore up and down that she had been high lots of times and at this point had convinced us that she wasn't pregnant. Stupidly, we let her take a whole 50 milligram CBD edible. So to be clear, the ones of us who could drive are me and Kevin, and he doesn't have a car. So later, when me and Babe were having some alone time, maybe passionately hugging time, as one would say, Kevin bangs on the bedroom door, screaming that there's an emergency. We got decent and rushed to their bedroom. Karen was just asleep. She was responsive. She just didn't want to wake up, which Kevin is losing it over. She's not shaking or showing any signs of distress. Her blood pressure was normal. She was breathing. She was just really high. We told him that she in no way needed to go to the hospital for this, to which she agreed, and just let her sleep it off. and that she's clearly just tired, but he's claiming it's an emergency. We warn him to let her sleep it off, and eventually he agrees. So back to bed me and Babe go, but she sobers up and we both stay vigilant. By 9 p.m. we have a movie on, and it sounds like everything is settled back down, until we hear Kevin cursing in the bathroom while the bathwater runs. This moron has carried his unconscious girlfriend to the bathtub and, while fully clothed, put her in our bathtub full of cold water to shock her awake. She had a bloody seizure in the bathtub, which led him to try to undress her? Kevin was frantic and panicking, while me and Babe were both like, "Dude, you should have just listened to us. She was fine before." I've never had to deal with someone having a seizure, and they weren't comfortable with me being nearby since she was practically naked. So now Babe has to try to deal with Karen and Kevin, while one of them blubbers incoherently, and the other has a seizure in her bathtub at 10 at night. Eventually she's fine and just goes to bed because she's understandably exhausted, and Kevin acts really suspiciously. We eventually learn that Kevin had tried to initiate intercourse with Karen while she was really high. There's a word for that. And when they began getting frisky, she got really confused and didn't remember anything. She was just in the middle of doing something inappropriate with him that she no longer wanted to do. When she fell asleep, I guess Kevin was afraid that she would say he tried to assault her, which he did, and that's why he lost it and tried to regain control of the situation. But he just made it worse. The next day, when we were all sober, we asked if she was okay and if he had left to see his mom, and Karen said she couldn't remember the night before, but that she was sure he hadn't done anything malicious. We kept a closer eye on him after that, though. I already had my suspicions of him being abusive, but there wasn't anything we could do without proof. And Karen was set on sticking with him. She was an adult, so yeah. They left their messes everywhere, hoarded food, and when their baby came with them, it got worse. They had to change their sleep schedule to be awake at the same time as the baby, so when Ezekiel was awake, they were too. At midnight, we'd hear them clanking around in the kitchen, watching TV loudly, and turning the AC way too high. It really started stressing Babe out, since I'm the calm one. I told her I'd have a talk with them, putting down some new ground rules. At this point, they probably had 5 days left with us, so one day, while Babe was at work, I sat them both down and explained that they could be up as late as they want, but no more cooking after 11 p.m. If they cooked anything, they had to clean up their mess, including dishes. No more touching the thermostat, and to stop stealing the TV from Babe after work. Karen took it all in stride, apologizing and agreeing, but Kevin was combative with almost every new rule I gave him. I always do my dishes when I cook. I don't know why this is an issue now. I've never cooked after 11. That shouldn't even be a rule. Well, the thermostat is kind of everyone's game. I don't see why I shouldn't be allowed to adjust it. And lastly, well, Babe watches things we don't like to watch. Shouldn't we come to an agreement as a household about what's played in a shared space? Sure, if you were actually part of the household, numbnuts. I didn't yell or freak out, I just calmly explained to him that these were rules me and Babe had discussed, and that I was being as diplomatic as I could, but that he was stressing us out. He eventually agreed, and right when I thought the conversation was over, he said, "Good thing you brought this up instead of Babe. I'd definitely have fought harder with her about these rules." I was taken aback and audibly said, "Excuse me?" Karen immediately knew Kevin had screwed up and tried yet again to shut him up. I asked him what he meant, and he kind of put his foot in his mouth. "Well, you know, you're the head of the household. I wouldn't expect her to have the authority to..." I calmly interrupted. "Look, buddy, Babe is the sole reason you're here instead of out on the streets. If it were up to me, I don't care if you have a baby or not. I don't care. That's your responsibility. You failed to support your family. This has never been me or Babe's responsibility. If we decided to kick your butt on the curb tomorrow, you'd be gone. You're too unsuccessful to be sexist. Shut up. Or I don't care what happens to you." I've never taken that tone with him, or anyone really for that matter. I was dead serious, though. Babe has stuck her neck out for them time and time again. This Kevin had the audacity to imply he'd undermine Babe because she didn't have the same authority that I did. As soon as Babe got home, I told her what happened, and discussed kicking them out early due to the sheer disrespect and entitlement. But Babe just told me to calm down, which is a first. It's usually the other way around, and said that we just wouldn't give them any longer if they didn't have a place to go after their 2 weeks were up. Kevin had refused to get any type of job since the low-income housing won't take us this late in the game if our income changes, when in reality he'd spent too long gunning after low-income housing. That if he just got his lazy butt up and got a job, he'd have already gotten them a place to live elsewhere. That's right, folks. This low-income housing place has spent so long by this point stringing Kevin and Karen along that if he just told them to screw off and got a job, they never would have been homeless to begin with. But every job he'd gotten had disrespected him. 2 days before they were supposed to leave, it was clear. Kevin had spent so long screwing around that there was no way they were going to find a place to stay in 2 days. So Kevin starts trying to negotiate, and guilt, but me and Babe stay firm. He's leaving. We mentioned the idea of Karen staying with the baby and him leaving. But she said she'd rather her and Ezekiel be homeless than part with Kevin. Kevin backed her up and said he wasn't comfortable with them staying away from him for an extended period of time. The day comes for them to leave. They ask one more time if they can just stay another week while the low-income housing strings them along. But we said nope, they had 2 weeks, it's time for them to be grown-ups. By some miracle, Karen's dad says he has an abandoned cabin on some land that probably has electricity and water, and that they can stay there. I found it suspicious that no one, not even their parents, would give them somewhere to go, because we met his mom several times and she was really kind, even giving me and Babe free food for keeping Kevin and Karen with us. So at some point I asked someone who Karen and Kevin had contacted to couchsurf with before us, and this individual told me that she gave Karen the option to take the baby and stay with her, but that Kevin couldn't come with. This led me and Babe down a rabbit hole where lots of people, churches and shelters, had given Karen the option to bring the baby and live with them, but everyone had turned down Kevin, because they knew him way more than I did, apparently. This frustrated me because they'd said from the beginning that no one had given them any options, and that everyone had turned them both down, only to learn that they'd had lots of options that they turned down, because it would require Kevin splitting from Karen and the baby. That irked me. Dear listener, I appreciate the fact that you made it this far, and as someone who lived through this, I deeply hope my suffering brings you entertainment, joy even, for it certainly did not do that for me. In the rush to get them out of the door, they had left a few items. An ongoing argument we had was their habit of just leaving unwrapped baby diapers on the floor. Ugh. I didn't know that until I stepped in one while looking for a movie they'd borrowed and forgot to return. I had to sit them down and tell them that leaving trash and baby diapers on the floor was a no-go. It was disrespectful and disgusting, and I wouldn't tolerate it. This was probably 4 days before they were to leave. Kevin complained that at night, it was too far to walk to put the diapers in the trash. So what I told him was to wrap the diaper in a plastic grocery bag, and he could leave it until the morning, and bring it to the garbage when he woke up. I explicitly told him to throw the diapers in the red trash can in the kitchen. We have a separate black trash can in the hallway that we used for cardboard. A chore of mine was after a week, I dumped the cardboard in the kitchen floor and sort cardboard we'd been keeping from cardboard to get thrown out. The black trash can was brand new, clean as a button. No risk of trash falling out of it when I'd sort cardboard. So the day after they leave, I try to regain my sense of normalcy. I clean the house, and as my final chore, I take the trash can from the hallway and prepare to take it to the kitchen. I dump it out, and what falls out but 6 or 7 full, dirty, stinky diapers. Kevin had thrown them in there, shoved the diapers to the bottom of the can, and squished them down with the cardboard, causing them to explode at the bottom and get wet and mushy. So, here they are now. Diapers in varying stages of decay, oozing spawn juices. I was furious. This was my breaking point. Up until this point, the meanest I'd been was strict. I took pictures and sent them to Kevin and Karen, telling them I didn't appreciate how they treated our home and our hospitality. And I told them, I hope they straighten up and figure out how to be adults, because if they keep going the way they currently are, they will be homeless again with no one who wants them, and likely get their kid taken away by the state. They blocked me, so I took their diapers and stuffed them into suitcases they still had left over, as well as grabbing a vape they left at our house and accidentally dropped it inside one of the diapers, which was really unfortunate because it was a vape that Karen was very proud of, due to the fact that it was reusable and not just to be thrown away. After that, finally, in the end of this long, harrowing, disgusting story, dear listener, the anxiety and stress you felt listening to this saga is understandable if not warranted. But now finally you may rest. If only. Epilogue. The swim. Much to my dismay, Babe wanted one last Kevin and Karen outing, for crying out loud, before we left our home state for greener pastures. Given that it had been more than 6 months since our last encounter, I didn't much mind. We decided to pick them up and go for a swim. What's one final hurrah, right? Let bygones be bygones for one day to celebrate the admitted years of history we had with each other. So we pulled up to the low-income apartment they finally managed to move into, which, to be fair, are definitely slick-looking apartments. Yes, listener, to their credit, sticking out the waiting process actually got them a pretty decent place. Karen gets in, skinny as a twig, and clearly quite pregnant. She has lost a lot of weight since they left our house. But she was definitely pregnant again. A pregnancy we'd later estimate to have started when they lived with us. Likely the night Kevin had shocked her into a seizure in our bathtub. So she gets in the car, and next does Kevin with sleek black sunglasses on, a Bass Pro hat the size of Texas, and a big bag of THC flour and a pipe, feeling like the bee's knees. The cat's pajamas, if you will. Brother didn't even bring a grinder. We quickly tell Kevin that no, we will not be doing that, to leave it inside. He starts to argue, but then Karen says, "Kevin, you know better." I think he was still on probation. "Okay, fine." He takes it in and comes back, looking more frustrated. We get on the road and he almost immediately starts ranting about some conspiracy theory. He then drops this nugget of gold. He turns to my fiancée, who's black, and says, "So what do you think of the rap industry? Seeing as you're the only black person in this car, you're really the only one who can have an opinion on hip-hop, according to the so-called Black Lives Matter movement." We were all shocked, even Karen. Babe says, "I don't listen to rap." And Kevin laughs and says, yes you do. It's kind of in your blood." To which Karen facepalms and Babe says, "No, that's actually really disrespectful, Kevin." And he just rolls his eyes and says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to offend any snowflakes." The Babe stops me from saying anything by just shaking her head at me, and Karen whisper-scolds Kevin. Kevin then asks if there was a hospital nearby because he wants to jump off the tallest rock at the swimming hole, and he wants to make sure someone can drive him in case he needs emergency services. We all told him that he won't in fact be doing that. He pouts at some point. The subject of Karen being pregnant again comes up and he says, "Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun for her. I refuse to do any more diapers or clean throw up." Not that he did that to begin with, which I witnessed with my own eyes. "I'm gonna be working soon, and I need to sleep." Yes, dear listener, he's still unemployed by this point. She's working. Again, I want to say something, but Babe stops me. About 3 miles out from the swimming hole, Karen gets car sick and throws up out her door, which is fine, as we were able to stop safely. When she throws up, Kevin goes, yuck, I'm gonna vomit." And while we're stopped, throws up into the back seat, rather than opening his door and throwing up outside. So now Karen is cleaning up his vomit and refuses to let anyone else help. We get to the swimming hole, everything is fine, going smooth. Then Karen says, "I'm hungry and really tired. Can you go get the sandwich stuff?" To which Kevin complains but does what she asks. Bae puts the towel on the log we were sitting on and asks Karen to join her on the dry towel instead of sitting in the wet dirt. We're all having fun when Kevin shows up and tells Karen to move. Karen says, "There's no more room on the log, though." And he says, "I don't care. I went to the car and got the sandwich stuff, and I don't want to sit in the dirt. Move or I'll sit on you." It was really awkward because he was really frustrated. I moved off the log and said, "You can have my spot, Kevin, calm down." And he says, "No, she has to learn." I then say, "You can have my spot, Karen, it's fine," and move to the dirt. Karen, embarrassed, moved to the part of the log that wasn't in the shade anymore, and a man sitting nearby went, "Yo, that's Bull." Kevin says, "Excuse me?" And the guy stands up. "I said that's Bull, buddy. I've been watching how you treat your pregnant girlfriend since you got here. You're a pussy. You took her goggles because you wanted to play in the shallows. Then you took her towel. Then you complained about getting her a sandwich. Your pregnant wife. She probably weighs like 60 pounds right now and you complained about getting her a sandwich. Then you force her out of her spot. The other lady probably doesn't want to sit next to you. You're such a piece of crap that your buddy had to be a gentleman and give up his seat for her. Man, you're a prick. You're lucky I'm watching my own kids right now and giving my wife a day off, or I'd knock your butt in the sand." Kevin was taken aback and said, "I was just kidding." To which I said, "No, you weren't." Babe tried to tell me to shut up, but the big guy said, "No, he's right. Good for calling out your friend. Look, man, your own buddy is ratting you out. You weren't kidding. If you were, you'd let your baby mama keep her seat. Honestly, if I were you, I'd just leave." At this point, several other people were looking, and a couple of other guys had joined in backing up the first big dude who spoke up. Karen started arguing with them and was like, "You don't know my man, he was just joking, mind y'all's business." Which kind of made them all quiet down. But after that, we just packed up our stuff and left. The day was ruined, but I was giddy with excitement that someone other than me had actually called out Kevin, and I was actually backed up when I did too. The big dude told me and Babe, "Nah, y'all ain't gotta leave." But we explained that we were there right, to which he said, "Oh, sorry." We left, and the whole way back Kevin was talking crap about how he totally could have beat that guy up, and how he only didn't because he didn't want to look bad and he wanted to be the bigger person. And Karen was backing him up with every sentence, just eating it up. It was really sad, but we yes-anded them the whole way home. We dropped them off, and I can happily say I haven't seen or talked to either of them since. Karen had her baby around election day, and Kevin wasn't happy that it wasn't another boy. Big surprise there. They're gonna be evicted soon because their home was unfit, and I think they're on CPS's radar. Kevin and Karen are constantly inviting people over, but asking them to bring food and weed. And recently Karen had a breakdown on their friend group chat about how Kevin won't get a real job. He's always mad at her about something, and he only ever wants to smoke weed. A lot of friends said, "You should have dropped him back in high school, now it's going to be a lot harder to get away from him, and you burnt a lot of bridges to stand up for him and enable him." She's upset because she's not Christian. She's a self-proclaimed witch, and he's trying to force her to be Christian. Then around election day, Kevin started sending, of course he did, pro-Trump conservative messages to the group from her phone, pretending to be her, and said that he didn't feel comfortable with her talking to anyone who doesn't have the same views as him. This was while she was giving birth in the hospital, by the way, which is how we know she didn't send the messages. Anyhow, we're now halfway across the country from both of them, and I hope it stays this way. Honestly, I know a lot of this could have been avoided if I'd just have told them no, but it's kind of nice to have the stories and experiences that I do now. Now, dear listener, this is truly the end of the saga. Spending over the last 6 years of my life, this truly is my life experience with a certified Kevin. But all this talk of senseless entitlement and stupidity really makes you think, doesn't it? It certainly made me do some self-reflection. What makes a Kevin a Kevin? Is it the unfounded, untrue assumptions about how our world works? Is it the laziness with an expectation of getting something in return? Is it the thought that if someone talks the loudest and argues the longest, it makes them right? Or could it be enablement? Could it be that being a Kevin is knowing better, knowing it's wrong to indulge in the presence of someone so self-absorbed that the time spent with them can only be classified as entertainment rather than a relationship? Stay with me now, listener, while I ask a question no one has dared before ask. Is a Kevin because of who he is deep down, or how he acts toward other people? Or are we the Kevin? Is there a chance that Kevin, while very much not a reflection of ourselves, is what becomes of us from hurting our own selves, just for a chance to bear witness to whatever zany adventure this individual next goes on? Like getting too close to a fire. Its warmth is good, but by reaching too far near, we burn ourselves in the process. Is it really the Mikes, Todds, and Ians in our lives that are the Kevins? Or is there a chance that we, just by getting too close enough to burn ourselves, are the Kevin? And therein lies, dear listener, the real question of today's epic tale. Goodbye, Kevin and Karen, wherever you are. The end. 2. My best friend is dating a Kevin. I'd do anything to get her to leave him, but we as a friend group have accepted this thing will need to run its natural course. It's excruciating. She has always been a super serious, studious loner. We only became friends because our last names start with the same letters, so we were always seated next to each other in school. I mean, because they were there is as good enough a reason to be a friend to someone as any. She got 2 honors degrees in college, then went immediately to a JD PhD program, joint lawyer doctoral degrees. She's a gorgeous girl, but she never dresses up to her potential, doesn't have an interest in hair and makeup, and would rather spend her free time alone inside than out with friends. Same. Apart from the gorgeous girl part. Although I'm kinda cute. Combine all these factors, and it makes more sense than that. Even though she's brilliant, funny, charming, and compassionate, she was in her late 20s when she got into her first relationship. No judgment here, I was much older. It still makes no sense that she's with Kevin. The rapid and erratic timeline of their relationship is cringe and ridiculous, but that's a story for another time. I'm just going to list some of the oddities about this guy in no particular order, and let you come to your own conclusion. Some things Kevin has done in just the first 2 months of this relationship. He has a note in his Apple Notes app where he writes down every time he has sex, what acts they did together, and assigns the girls a satisfaction score. Ugh. I know because he showed my friend, after writing about her in it, to compliment her that she had one of the highest satisfaction scores he'd given so far. He's never given my friend an orgasm and is totally unreceptive to her feedback and unconcerned that he does not pleasure her. In his words, "I did everything you're supposed to do. If that doesn't work, that's something you have to figure out about your body." I mean, if you're not needed in that equation, bro, then can't you just bugger off? My friend volunteers time every month with an organization that takes children in foster group homes on field trips. Kevin said he feels bad that she prioritizes time with them over him, and she should make an effort to invite him. It can be a volunteer date. He repeats the same things over and over, I guess because he thinks it's funny. But he'll say the same word or phrase 10 times in 10 different tones or voices, then laugh hysterically like, "Kevin, do you want cereal or toast?" "Toast, toast, 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 toast." Said, "I love you" on day 12, got really offended when she didn't say it back. His landlord told him when he moved in to be sure lots of guests didn't crowd the parking lot. Probably thinking a guy in his 20s has parties and things. He took it literally and makes my friend park 6 blocks away even when she comes over late at night, despite there being ample parking. He won't even ask his landlord if she can park there. He's confrontation averse. Invited himself on a trip with my friend and her mom and her brother, got stopped at TSA trying to carry on 3 enemas with packaging referencing anal prep. Did not discuss any of this with my friend, thought it would be a fun surprise. They were going to a funeral. He likes to sing along loudly to pop songs, but he often mishears and misunderstands the lyrics and won't let anyone correct him. Example, has been singing, "I'm gonna keep romancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep romancing, did the best that I could." It's multiple songs every day, and he repeats them over and over. First date was at a family fun center. It had a paintball range, but my friend loathes guns and all things shooting. He guilted her into it by saying he'd already paid for a round and proceeded to annihilate her with a custom paintball gun he brought from home, as well as several of the young children on the opposing team. Oh, honey, please leave this guy. He shot up my friend even though they were on the same team. This was their first date. He was so aggressive with his PDA attempts at the family fun center on the first date at 1 p.m. on a weekday that they were asked to leave. After their second date, he started using her as an emergency contact. Ugh. He owns 2 ferrets, and one is named after him, as in he chose to give it the same name as himself. Not like by coincidence, it already had that name, and the other he named after his grandmother, who is still alive and well. He put my friend in his phone as Wifey on the third date. His phone ringtone is the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music, but he has never seen the show and has no interest in ever seeing it. He insists he just likes the music. He once said, "The more people tell me I should watch it, the more resolute I am that I will never watch it." He brought all of his sisters to the fourth date. Didn't give my friend any warning. My friend's parents are pretty well off, and he is profoundly insecure about this. The first time I met him, another one of our friends was able to join us unexpectedly. Conversation went like this. My friend said, "Oh, John is going to stop by too." "What do his parents do?" "They're both lawyers too." "Well, my mom's a homemaker and my dad's broke his crap, so I guess I'll just go screw myself." At first I thought it was a joke that didn't land, but he was completely serious. He tells her all the time, apropos of nothing, "I'm not a rich man, but I can give you what they can't. Love." Sounds like he took that song a little too seriously. His insecurity about money manifests in totally socially inappropriate ways. My friend's little sister was admitted to law school recently, and the family went out to a big dinner to celebrate. Her parents, quite successful professionals, got a table for the whole family and several guests at a high-end restaurant booked and paid for in advance. He got up during the meal and paid for the whole thing. Had to be north of $500, if not $1,000. My friend told him he really did not have to do that, and should not have, but he just kept saying, "I want your parents to know I can pay for stuff like that, so they don't think less of me." He made her sister's night about him. But my friend wanted to give benefit of the doubt that he was trying to do a nice thing, but stuff like this keeps happening. I want a Tony Soprano moment. "Listen, kid, I pay, you eat." Whenever he comes over to someone's house, even if they're a stranger to him, he changes their thermostat without permission to 62 degrees. That really should just get him taken out back and beaten. I told him off when he tried it at my house, and he said, "What can I say? I know what I like." Then stay home, you loser. On the fifth date, he invited himself to my friend's grandparents' house. He spent a lot of money buying lavish gifts and repeatedly told my friend it was important to him to make a good impression on them. When he actually got to their house, he barely spoke at all, except to talk about himself and make innuendos about their granddaughter. They met on Bumble. She told him clearly she doesn't think it's other people's business that she's on dating apps, so if anyone asks how they met, to just say, "We live right near each other." It's vague but true. He turned out to live just 2 miles away. Instead, he volunteers unprompted, "We met on Bumble." He says he feels it's dishonest not to be straightforward about it. He forgets what to say. He doesn't want to feel like she's embarrassed by him. He met my friend's grandparents. Within minutes, he said, "I know you're probably worried about the fact that, statistically, you're going to die soon. But you don't have to worry anymore. She has me now." They'd been together 15 total days. He wakes her up in the middle of the night, repeatedly, for no reason. If it were me, the first time this happened, relationship over. My friend is an overshadowed insomniac who gets 7 hours sleep on a good night. Reasons he's given for waking her up: to tell her that one of her earplugs fell out, to show her something on Instagram, to talk about how he's insecure about his body, and many, many times to see if she would have sex with him. Like 3 a.m., she's dead asleep. He is shaking her awake, saying, Hey, I'm horny. Hey, I'm horny. Can you wake up?" Verbatim quote. He told him to stop doing this, and he says, "I forget, and you sleep too much." He's always giving her gifts, but they're comically bad. Example, a pair of his old sneakers. He's a man's size 12 and she's a women's 5. A half-used box of gluten-free brownie mix. A lock of his hair. To make more of him? No thanks. Speaking of hair, when they first became exclusive, she started trying to get him to go for a haircut. He had kind of a Jimmy Neutron thing going on. When he finally did get a haircut, he went to this salon in our town that is exclusively for children to get their hair cut. Like in their name, they spell cuts with a Z. Now he looks like Edna Mode, except for some reason they cut a triangle in the middle of the bangs which made them look puffy. She is trying to get him to go to a different barber, but he says he's loyal to this other place. I didn't even know they would cut an adult's hair there. I've met him in person 5 times, and 3 of these times he's interrupted a conversation by blurting out, "Already I'm gonna go take a pretty mean crap," except a bit more vulgar. Staying on that topic, he has an ungodly smell about him. My friend cannot convince him to use antiperspirant deodorant, so he only smells clean for the first hour or 2 of the day. He dilutes his laundry soap with water to save money, and so the detergent smell is not too strong. But hear me clearly and good, it is too diluted. His clothes are not clean. You can smell him coming a block away, and it's not a money issue. He has an in-unit washer and dryer. I'll bet he doesn't properly maintain them. That could also account for the smell. He does not floss and will not entertain the idea of starting. On the 6th date, in my friend's presence and stone-cold sober, he called all 4 of his exes on the phone to tell them he is in a way better relationship now and not thinking about them at all. Then tried to get my friend to tell them by phone how good the sex was. He has erratic and unpredictable moods that he expects my friend to soothe like he's a toddler. They went on a date in a museum last week, and he left for the bathroom, then got lost trying to find his way back. He was irate to find my friend where he'd left her, because, to his mind, after 10 or so minutes, she should have gone looking for him. He did not talk to her for the rest of the date because, "I'm mad now." He is always complaining that he is insecure about his weight, then tells my friend that, because she is a conventional weight, it is her responsibility to make him lose weight. He drives a Nissan Rogue. Good car, nothing wrong with it. He calls it a truck. When we were meeting for the first time, he said, "I left my phone in the truck. Be right back." So you can imagine my confusion to learn later. His one and only vehicle is this Nissan. For reference, it's an SUV. I thought maybe it was another joke that wasn't landing, but I had to know, so the second time it came up, I asked and he said, "Well, trucks are more masculine than cars." Okay. And I said, "Okay, so if you want a truck, why not trade this in for one?" And he sounded totally confused. He said, "Why would I want to drive a truck in the city?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I think you've got a good car, but you call it a truck. I'm just curious why." And he got visibly upset and said, "Man, just let me have this. Leave me alone." He does not clean his apartment after sex. He leaves used condoms on the floor, sheets unchanged, sex toys unwashed, and on the ground, sometimes for days. "Scene of the crime. Proud of my work," is what he said when my friend called him on his unhygienic habit. My friend graduated law school last year, but is still doing PhD work. He's trying to convince her to drop out. "Aren't you just doing it for the elitism? What good will a PhD even do you? You're a lawyer. You have the law degree. This is a waste of time." When she met his parents, after 2.5 weeks, he introduced her as his future wife. When she met his parents for the first time, he faked a pregnancy announcement. She was not in on it. All of his clothes are either a size too small or 3 sizes too big. He calls his mom in the middle of sex. Yes, you heard that correctly. They'll be having sex and he'll stop in the middle and say, "You know, I haven't called my mom yet today." And stop what they're doing and call her. Have a 15-minute chat about neighbors and groceries, then expect to go right back to sex. There are quite literally a dozen more quirks and tone-deaf events I could list here, but I've probably gone on long enough. We tried to get my dear sweet friend to stop dating this schmuck, but she genuinely believes she won't find anyone else interested in a committed relationship. At least that means I'll have more data points for an update before they finally break up. Hellfreezer's note, I hope your friend does eventually come to her senses, because she sounds so intelligent. And it sounds like, from the way you've described it, she's aware he's not a good match. He's really bringing nothing to the table. Not even good sex. It doesn't sound like he makes her feel good about herself, so what is he offering her that improves her life? Objectively, it looks like right now, well, yeah, she might be alone. Being alone might be a preferable option toward being with this particular person. I feel it's going to be one of those situations that when she is finally free of it, she'll look back on the relationship and she'll realize just how bad the bad things were, and realize that her life has actually improved in many, many ways by being on her own. And quite frankly, your friend sounds like an amazing catch. Any man would be lucky for a chance. It's just a self-confidence issue, but self-confidence can be improved. And she can start by losing the dead weight. 3. I have met Kevin a few times, and he is not the smartest smarty in the smarty tube. I want smarties, damn it. However, this story comes from my best friend, Ian. He and Kevin are much closer than Kevin and I are, although I have no idea why he keeps him around. Before we get to the vacation, some background Kevin stories to set the scene. Kevin constantly asks out every woman he meets. He has admitted before to going through people's Facebook friends, messaging every girl he sees. He once messaged another friend to ask if she was still with her boyfriend every couple of months for a year. He also falls for catfishing and has, quote, been scammed that way before. I had a friends with benefits situation once, and was talking about how much I liked her. He was so amazed by the concept of friends with benefits that he asked, do you have to pay her? He also asked if I could put him in contact with her and to tell her he has a decent size and freaky kinks, which I declined. Usually, I don't like messing with people, but I was so surprised and annoyed to be asked this that I told him she was into water sports just to see how he would react. He answered completely sincerely, my only question would be, is she well hydrated? How this could be the deciding factor remains a mystery to this day. Upon asking what the freaky kinks he mentioned are, he said, things like when girls wear stockings and stuff. My god, Kevin, you shag monster. Ian and I both work in taxation. I for a government tax agency, and he's an accountant. Yes, people do find best friends on either side of that hilarious. Kevin, inspired by this, took an accountancy course and has started doing tax returns for people. He called Ian up the other day before the submission deadline to ask him basic questions and help him figure out why the numbers weren't adding up. Turns out he was taking the full amount of expenses off the total tax due instead of deducting them from profits. God help these poor taxpayers. In case someone doesn't get that, basically, this would result in a badly inaccurate amount of tax to be paid. Shortly afterwards, he said he was hoping to find new clients to expand his business. Kevin once spent £300 in 1 month on premium porn, asked his parents for money to get through to payday, told the truth about why he needed it, and got told by his mother, "You have a problem." This is certainly true, but I'm amazed and kind of impressed he didn't think to lie. On to the vacation in question. The two of them went to a little lakeside resort quite popular around this area and stayed in a cabin. Some highlights. They got food for the vacation on the way there. Kevin put a carton of milk perched right up against their suitcases on the back seats. Tiny car, no space in the trunk. This resulted in a quick stop, milk explosion, and a smell in Ian's car for weeks after. Upon arrival, Kevin realized he had forgotten to pack any upper body clothes. No shirts, no t-shirts, nothing but the one on his back. Kevin Googled the nearest Sainsbury's, UK chain of supermarkets. They drove 45 minutes to get some. Upon arrival, the store was one of those little ones that just have food and necessities. Kevin was shocked to discover that they don't all have clothes. He is the only person in the UK not aware that there are 2 sizes of supermarkets. The whole week they were there. He didn't shower once, despite only having 1 t-shirt per failed shopping trip. He apparently did not change jeans either. They had a hot tub, and after he got in it once, Ian could not bear to use it again. They ran out of toilet paper, no worries, there was a little on-site place you could buy basic stuff like that. Kevin said it was no rush, since you don't have to wipe every time. This statement bothers me on a human level. 4. For context, he's a friend I had in high school. I didn't know him too long, but when I did, here are some of the things he got up to. He wanted to be a singer. He practiced singing with noise-cancelling headphones on, and complained when other people told him he wasn't very good. A generous compliment. In my opinion, he was tone-deaf and awful. He was on various dating apps throughout his high school career, claiming to be 25 and trying to get with women over 40. He got 0 matches. When he turned 18, he made a true profile and set his age preference to any. He still got 0 matches. One time I looked at the aforementioned dating profile for him, and his bio was just kind of a rant about how he didn't understand why no one would give him the old college try. He burned most of his hair off one time. He didn't realize that lighting matches and holding them near his head would cause that. He wasn't injured, but you'd think he was with the amount of bitching he did about having to shave his head. When asked why he had the matches near his head in the first place, he claimed he was trying to hear the fire. He wanted to be in the army because he wanted to come home a war hero. I asked him what he thought happened in the military, and he said, not a direct quote, but close, "Don't you just go shoot guns and stuff?" His Instagram page was as if a 12-year-old girl's diary and a 13-year-old boy pretending to be a psychopath on the internet had a kid. It was cringe. Clearly full of outrageous lies, and he seemingly had issues with basically everyone in his grade. He didn't, however, know these people's names, so he tried to describe them, not well. He wanted to be an artist. He couldn't draw. He used to pitch me ideas he thought were genius of what to draw and try to get me to do it. I also can't draw, which I told him many times. Even if I could, I wouldn't waste my time drawing sexy sharks. He called leopards lepers. He spelled it right, don't ask me how, but would insist it was pronounced lepers. He did not have a speech impediment or anything. He was just convinced the D was silent. Even Google could not convince him. He insisted to everyone that he was going to go to our local university. He was in the lowest level of classes in everything but history, and that was because there was no lowest level history. He failed history 3 times. I don't know how he finally passed. I have many more, but my favorite of all the things he did was he fell out of a tree on purpose to break his arm so he wouldn't have to write his exams one year. He did it and happily fractured his left wrist. Listener, Kevin is right-handed. 5. She came into my life maybe 10 years ago as a friend of my girlfriend. This girl is something else entirely. Let me share a few stories. Her car broke down in another state, maybe between 3 and 6 hours from home. She called her dad, 60+ years old, and forced him to come get her. He had offered to send money for a nearby hotel or AAA. It was 2 a.m. She's in her mid-20s. She finds a nearby restaurant and just stays there for several hours giving life updates. Most of her updates are about how the guy cashier is giving her weird, unwelcoming vibes and being absolutely furious with her dad. I can't remember why she was so ticked at her elderly father. He was driving all the way down just to pick her up and take her home. She also didn't order food from said restaurant because she had less than $20 to her name, as one does when traveling out of state. She started an OnlyFans for women empowerment or something, which is totally fine, but has since deleted and removed her OnlyFans and affiliated pages. Then got upset when a lot of her male friends unfriended her. Said friends had friended her during her woman empowerment era, make several daily posts about how harmful the OnlyFans experience was to her. I'm guessing she didn't make a lot of money, or crying about the loss of followers. Will constantly make posts about being bored and how she misses all her friends, and wishes she could hang out with people, but they're all too busy for her now. On each of these posts, people will reach out and invite her to social gatherings, one-on-one hangouts, etc., and she'll turn them all down to various reasons. Actually, I can't stand playing board games. I have PTSD from losing Monopoly when I was 12. Not a direct quote, but super close. Has self-diagnosed herself with every trendy disease over the years: depression, anxiety, PTSD, autism, etc., etc., etc. will start each of her social media posts with, "As someone who has autism, has come out as bi, never had a single relationship with a woman except once got into a throuple where the woman was already pregnant, then got incredibly upset when the man wouldn't leave his baby mama for her. Currently has PTSD from that throuple relationship, but I loved the whole thing because during the throuple she would post several times a day. As a bi person in a throuple, I think more modern couples need to expand their horizon and be free thinkers and not conform to society. Has vowed never to be in a throuple again, PTSD and all that. Has renamed herself something incredibly cringy. Like imagine a goth cringe guy changing his name to Dracar Noir. I know some of these might seem like me dogging on this poor girl, but watching her is like watching a garbage fire, and it's probably one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen. I would feel bad about it, but there is zero accountability. Everything that goes wrong is someone else's fault, or the universe is out to get her, but it all goes back to her decision-making." Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to A Cacophony of Kevins, episode 20. And thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. Before you go, please press the like button, or smack it about a bit if you want, whatever makes you happy, and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. That is one of the ways that YouTube realizes y'all like the video, and then recommends and things and stuff, and there might be a badger with a gun involved. I don't know, I wasn't really paying much attention. But we do what we can to appease the great god, algorithm. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can sign up for my Patreon page. You get the videos early on a Monday. There's a link to that in the description. There's also my merchandise store, and you can of course make one-off donations during this or any other video, should you feel inclined to do so. You don't have to, but I do appreciate it, and it helps. Okay, I think that's all the business, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day, and today's question is: have you ever eaten a movie or a television show tie-in food that you miss because you just can't get it anymore because it only existed because of that thing? Specifically, right now, I'm really craving the Beetlejuice chocolate. Because when the movie came out not too long ago, they put out these popcorn slabs which had like purple, I think it was white chocolate, but with a purple dye in it, purple chocolate coated in the popcorn, and it was really, really nice, and I need them. But I was only able to get them a couple of times, so why don't you share some of yours in a comment below? I look forward to reading your answers, and before we go, let's take a little look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one was from A Cacophony of Kevins 19, and it was about awkward but necessary phone calls. This one is from Gwarch Siren. I work in energy, and used to work in British Gas and later in E.ON. I actually worked in the incoming smart meter booking line for E.ON. My most awkward call wasn't one I've made, but one where a customer called in to decline a smart meter. This is fine. You just give me a reason, and depending on what it was, I might have been able to stop the letters for a while. We had to send them because of the government mandate, but could pause them for a short period. Anyway, this old guy calls in. He tells me he doesn't want a smart meter because his wife firmly believed they were a sign of the end times. Sadly, this wasn't listed as a reason I could stop the letters. My entire team has a good chuckle over it after the customer was gone, though. Thank you very much for your answer, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. Which reminds me, this is a week I've set to find a new energy supplier because the two I'm with need to go. Well, one of them does, so they kind of both need to go because I just want to be with a single supplier. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.